This week on Quality Digest Live, we talk with Keith Bevan of the Coordinate Metrology Society.
Plus, what can IBM's Watson cognitive computer do? Well, what can it do, Dirk?
There we go.
We're going to find out when we come back.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for February 12th, 2016. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest publisher, Mike Richmond. All right, well, when it comes to providing a structure for performance improvement on a personal and organizational level, few can match the American Society for Quality and the Malcolm Baldrige Performance Excellence Program, respectively. So it comes as no great surprise to this reporter that the ASQ and the Baldrige program are pulling together to offer ASQ certification testing at this year's Baldrige Quest for Excellence event in Baltimore that's starting on April 3rd. Now, ASQ exams offered at Quest for Excellence include the Certified Quality Auditor and the Certified Quality Engineer, among others. And we know we've talked about this in QDD and on the show, that these are really highly regarded certificates. And they really have been shown through a lot of surveys that ASQ's done over the years, that they really do boost career earnings and advancement opportunities for those within this little profession of ours. So you can check it out. The application deadline is coming Thursday, February 18th, less than a week. And to find out more information, including a link where you can apply, just check out the story link right below the video player screen, right down there. And I have to say, you know, Dirk, I mean, to me, when I hear about all ASQ and Baldrige, the combo of them working together, it's somewhat akin to that old two great tastes that taste great together commercial. Remember that one?
Yes.
Do you remember that one?
No, I don't.
Yeah, two great tastes that taste great together?
What was it?
The guy that was walking down the street, he had a chocolate bar, and the other guy had a jar of peanut butter. And the chocolate went into the peanut butter. It was two great tastes that taste great together. Do you remember that?
Peanut butter.
Peanut butter, that's right.
That's really good stuff, right? Okay, wait, hey, did you know that NIST has a standard reference material for peanut butter?
I did not know that.
There
what
you
a
go.
Coincidence that I mentioned the chocolate and the peanut butter.
It's amazing.
Who would have known that?
Well, the standard reference material, as you may or may not know, is just, these are the standards against, the physical standards against which labs across the country calibrate their equipment. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that not as only is there a standard reference material for peanut butter, but a lot of other foodstuffs out there as well. And like I said, these are used to calibrate equipment, and it doesn't matter whether, you know, SRMs, standard reference materials, it doesn't matter whether it's gauge blocks for calibrating dimensional measurement equipment or peanut butter in this case for nutritional measurements. Now, you might ask, why do we even need food SRMs? Well, as you are no doubt aware, packaged foods in the United States come with a list of nutritional values mandated by the Nutritional Labeling and Education Act of 1990, which is enforced by the Food and Drug Administration. So legally, when you have a label on a piece of food that gives you its nutritional value, it has to be correct. It has to be giving accurate numbers. Now, from a consumer's point of view, this is valuable so that when you read the label on your peanut butter and it tells you that 2 tablespoons of peanut butter on your peanut butter and banana sandwich is contributing about 200 calories to your diet, you can trust that it's actually contributing 200 calories and not, 400 calories. Mm-hmm. So food manufacturers need food SRMs, and there are about 1,300 of them from NIST in order to calibrate their lab equipment. So let's talk about peanut butter. A food lab would say take a sample from their NIST SRM, and they would measure it in a calorimeter, for instance, to see what the calorie content of let's say 100 grams of SRM peanut butter. Their results should match the specs that are included in the certificate that comes with their SRM from NIST. If not, then their calorimeter needs calibrating. Same for other types of content. So we have a slide here that shows you what this spec sheet with the peanut butter SRM might include. So we look on there, I'm not sure if you can read it on your screen, but for instance, we can see down there that the amount of calories in, I believe this is 100 grams of peanut butter SRM from NIST is 629 calories. And there's, how much solids are in there, how much ash. There's also, chemical content. So when the food manufacturer takes the sample and goes through all their measurements to calibrate their equipment, they should be getting their same amounts that they're showing here on this sheet that comes with their SRM. And if not, then calibration is needed. By the way, you might wonder how much peanut butter from NIST costs. Well, an SRM for 512 grams of peanut butter, that's a little over a pound, is $835. Yes, that's about $50 an ounce.
Is this peanut butter or caviar?
Well, there you go. It's pretty expensive. So I guess you could say standard reference materials for foods are NIST.
Bread and butter.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I finally got one. You finally fed me one and I got it. Fed me one. That's
I'll be
great.
here all week.
Thank you. Try the fish. Okay. Well, it's time now to turn to our monthly CMSC Corner segment. This is where we spend a few moments with a member of the Coordinate Metrology Society, the world's leading organization for the science of large volume, close tolerance, and highly accurate portable 3D measurement. The Society represents users and providers of hardware, software, and peripherals, and we here at Quality Digest are proud to say that we serve as their media partner. Today we're going to be chatting about the Society's conference coming up this July in Nashville, their new Precision Path Consortium, and a lot more. To chat with us about these topics, we're pleased to welcome Keith Bevan, CMSC Vice Chairperson, as well as the Delivery Manager for Training at the National Physical Laboratory in the UK. Keith, welcome to the show.
Hi guys, good to see you.
Oh, cheers, a little Guinness.
Cheers.
Oh, boy.
Well, we should say it's 7:06 right now, UK time in the PM on Friday night. So Keith is off into his weekend. We're not, but Keith is. So Keith, thank you for taking time out of your Friday night to be with us. Well, we mentioned CMSC 2016 coming up in Nashville this summer. So what do people who might be interested in attending the conference need to know about registration and deadlines?
Okay, the important things I think for people to remember is obviously they need to register for the conference. And there are specific dates with which they register by, which links to the cost of coming to the conference. And for example, the early bird registration is actually May the 20th, which actually coincides with World Metrology Day. And actually to be able to register, all they need to do is to go onto the CMSC website and actually look on the left-hand side, and you'll see there's quite an easy way of registering and logging into the system to put your information in. The other thing that's also available is a justification letter if people need to talk to their boss to justify the money for going to the conference.
So Keith, one of the things, and we do recommend people check out CMSC. So
By the way, any of the links that you're seeing that pop up here, those are also on the player page,
yes.
Down underneath the player. So.
Yeah, so you can check those out. You don't have to jot them down too fast, but you can check them out underneath there. Well, Keith, one of the things that we both enjoy, Dirk and I, having gone to a lot of these shows, one of the things we enjoy at CMSC and is very unique are those white paper presentations, and they really represent the cutting edge in this field. So how does someone who's practicing in the field and want to submit a paper for consideration go about that?
Okay, so the first thing that they need to think about is obviously what the subject is that they want to present, and the focus must be around technical rather than a sales orientated presentation. Then there is basically have to submit an abstract by a specific date, and then from submitting that abstract they will then get a response to say whether that has been successful or not. The current date for submission of abstracts or a summary is actually the 11th of March this year. And then by April, a response will be given to say whether it's been successful or not.
Okay, and these papers are really interesting. If you've never been to the CMSC, the papers are definitely the highlight. They're very tend to be very practical oriented type papers, how particular types of measurements were set up and taken for sometimes very complex 3D-dimensional measurements. So they're really well worth watching too. So let's talk about the Level 1 and Level 2 certification exams that are also going to be offered this summer in Nashville. Tell us just really briefly what the certifications are for and what the benefits are, and also kind of what's needed to prepare for the certifications.
Okay, the certification sort of started many years ago, basically trying to target the fact that obviously the workforce that had been involved in metrology was getting sort of to the, as is described, the greying stage, or the aging stage. And so also you've also got the link to new skills and technologies that are coming along. So that it was deemed that there was a need to, if you like, use the words upskill or bring people up to a level of understanding around the underpinning knowledge of metrology to support any new technologies that are coming along. So it's a global issue that there is a skills gap when it comes to some of the information that is needed within metrology.
And Keith, I know where we're going to find you in Nashville because we see you there every year at the show in different places. You're going to be in the measurement zone. That's your baby. So tell our viewers a little bit about what that is, what the measurement zone is, and what's planned for that area at the 2016 show.
Okay, so the measurement zone this year, we've actually, we're still center stage within the exhibition area. It's actually going to be split into two. It will have a measurement zone and an education zone. Both those zones are sponsored by two different organisations. So we've got Metrology, who are continuing their sponsorship of the measurement zone, and then Creaform, who are covering the education zone. We will be doing different types of measurements in the measurement zone across a range of measuring equipment, and a competition, which is obviously we're always looking for people to engage in a competition. The education zone, we've got the return of Jeopardy that was so successful last year, a competition for anybody to enter. But this year we're going to have at least 4 different competitions where the fourth competition will be a grand final for the winners of the first 3. So that's going to be a bit interesting for us, along with a few workshops on the best practice of laser trackers and a bit on GD&T and also a bit on laser scanning and a little bit on e-learning. So there's a real mix for everybody to come along to support their underpinning knowledge that they need for metrology. And then it also provides a link to the CMS certification scheme.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I was going to say the precision. The measurement zone Jeopardy game. These are all questions that are kind of related to general knowledge of 3D dimensional measurement, right?
That's right. It's basically this knowledge base that you need to support yourself when you're doing obviously metrology applications. So understanding things around the design requirements, understanding the good practices associated with the environment that you're working in or the measuring instruments that you're using. You may have more than one instrument you can use, which is the right one to use for the particular application. So there's a lot of questions associated with that.
Well, Keith, we're coming to the end of the segment. Before we let you go and enjoy the rest of your Friday evening, I want to ask you about the latest undertaking of the Society, the Precision Path Consortium, and that's something that really has just been bubbling up and coming up here in the last couple of months and the last year. So what's the status of that project now, and where and when is the next meeting?
Okay, the current status is at the moment is there are 20 members from different manufacturers, from end users and so on that are working on the actual committee that's associated with this project. They first met last October, and they're working towards the second meeting, which is actually held on the 22nd of February this year. So the plans are to obviously keep that moving forward and trying to obviously look at the requirements for manufacturing and it linked to metrology for the future. And that actual meeting is in, I think it's in Charlotte this year.
And Keith, just to kind of refresh our memories, the goal of Precision Path is to support advanced manufacturing. So from the CMSC's point of view, is that support in terms of improving dimensional measurement, 3D dimensional measurement and training, or is it even more broader than that?
No, I think it's broader than that. It's not necessarily just the training. It's about the technology. It's about how we utilize the technology to become smarter as we move forward, and how you integrate metrology into the manufacturing process.
Well, Keith Bevan, thank you for joining us today. Keith Bevan of the Coordinate Metrology Society and the National Physical Laboratory in the United Kingdom. Keith, thanks for joining us today and taking some time out of your Friday night. We'll look forward to seeing you, of course, in Nashville in July. We encourage everyone out there who's in this space to check out cmsc.org and register to the show. If you haven't gone before, it's a unique experience, and you really should check it out. So, Keith, thank you for being here with us on Quality Digest Live today.
Cheers, guys.
We'll see you soon.
Save one for me.
That's right.
All right. Well, you know, there is big data, and there is what you do with that data. And currently, when we think about big data, we think about data mining. But that is just really the tip of the iceberg. I mean, data mining really is just how do you take all of this big, huge chunks of data and extract useful information from them. And that's important. You know, teasing out useful data from the terabytes of data that you might collect, let's say, in an industrial Internet of Things application. Well, that's one thing. But what about a computer's ability to react to and make decisions, perhaps life and death decisions, on its own? In other words, to mimic what a human might do. Is that even possible? And would we even want it? Well, this is kind of the holy grail of computer science, and it's what computers like Watson are potentially laying the groundwork for. I'm not sure if you remember Watson. It's a big computer. It's not necessarily the fastest computer, but it is a unique computer from IBM. You may have seen it back in 2011 when Watson played Jeopardy against two mere humans, and one, of course. But it's gone on. It's gone further than that. It's gone on to become a medical diagnostician, a chef,
so to speak,
and more. And the idea is that to create a computer that you can ask complex questions of and get complex answers, like you might get by, say, speaking to it verbally, you know, telling it your medical symptoms, for instance, and it giving you a course of treatment. Well, that sounds scary, and it is at this point, but think of the possibilities. Think of the possibilities for our audience, for instance, in a corporate setting. Could a computer give management advice, customer service advice? You know, maybe when you call customer service, you reach tech support, but it's a computer, not a person.
Right.
And I think this raises some really interesting ideas. I mean, right now the way we use computers traditionally is they're good for looking up answers, but they're not good, more or less, not good so far at making decisions, at getting into the gray, the grayer areas of questions, and that's really what we're talking about. So, you know, if you talk about could you have a computer CEO? Think of all the things. I mean, he's not just making business decisions, but making managerial decisions, decisions that affect people. And that got me to really thinking about whether this is a good idea. I mean, computers are getting close to that point where I think they can.
Yeah, and cognition is what we're talking about.
We're basically
It's known as
computer cognition.
Yeah. Which is a scary thing to some people. I mean, it's scary. I think it's scary to me, and I think about it from the perspective of all those movies we've seen all over the course of the years, all these sci-fi movies from HAL in 2001, and on forward.
War Games,
all that
Whopper.
stuff. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Would you like to play a game?
So I mean, yeah, it's like this idea that from cognition comes consciousness, which I don't think that is the case. We've had this debate.
Well, it's interesting, and I'll get to what I think is important about this in a little bit. But a lot of studies have shown, and real experiments with real computers, really interacting with people. There's one that was done in the 60s. It was a computer program that acted as a therapist, a computer therapist. And the interesting thing about it was the people that were experimented on with this knew they were talking to a computer. They knew it was a computer program. They would ask it questions. It would respond back with a particular form of therapy, a therapy style, I should say. There's a therapy style that involves essentially repeating back to the questioner their question, just kind of rephrasing it, right? A very easy computer program. Well, the amazing thing is that people got really involved in spilling their guts to this computer, even though they knew it was a computer. So there is a level at which we will react with a computer, knowing it's a computer, and be open with it. And I think there are ways you can really use it. And one that comes to mind is customer service.
We'll talk about the Furby thing, because I think that was interesting. We talked about that before the show.
Okay, well, I'm sure. I mean,
I don't want to get off track, but this is interesting.
Well, one of the experiments they did was with the inventor of the Furby was contacted by folks at Radiolab. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Radiolab is a science program. And they brought in a bunch of little kids, like 6, 7-year-old kids. And the kids were given a Barbie doll, a live gerbil, and a Furby. And one of the experiments they did is they said, okay, well, here, take this Barbie doll, and they gave the Barbie doll to the kids, and hold it upside down. And they, how long could you hold this upside down? The kids are just like, well, it's just, I don't know, I could hold it here forever. It's whatever, and they let them hold it for like 5, 6, 7 minutes and got bored and set it down. Then they gave them a gerbil, a live gerbil. Held the gerbil upside down. Now the kids felt really uncomfortable with it. So did the gerbil, right? Gerbil squirming and like, oh no, they don't want to hurt the gerbil. So that lasted for like maybe 5 seconds, right? Okay, then they gave them the Furby. If you don't remember the Furby was a mechanical device.
Doll,
it was a doll. It would talk. It made noises. It was sensitive to light and sound, and it evolved over time. That's what was unique, is the Furby evolved over time. They gave them a Furby. Turn the Furby upside down, and the Furby would cry and make uncomfortable noises and twitch and stuff. Whoa! And they'd turn it back. The kids were interviewed about this later and said, "Well, why'd you do that?" Well, I felt like I was hurting it. Well, I knew it was a toy. I knew it was a toy, but I felt like I was upsetting it. But I knew it was a toy.
See, what's interesting to me about this is that these machines that we call cognitive machines that do grow and evolve and change, the emotional response is on the human side, the interactive side on the human side of it, not the machine itself. The machine itself doesn't have any it doesn't have any consciousness. There may be cognition, there may be an ability to route through questions and figure out answers and learn. But it's not conscious. I mean, there's a difference there, I think.
True, but I don't think, in certain circumstances, I don't think we care. Let's go back to the customer service example, because I think this could really work. And actually, I happen to know this has been done. It hasn't been done verbally, but it's been done textually. There are text bots that are chatting with you on some customer service lines. You may not know that, but it's actually happening. But verbally, I think, and even if they were upfront and said, okay, you're talking to a robot, ask your question of our customer service robot, I don't think people would care as long as the answers they were getting made logical sense, the robot stepped them through it, and the interaction seemed reasonably human-like. I don't think that would bother people, and I think it would work, and I think it would work a lot better than it does right now. I mean, you've called the board customer service. Hi, what's your problem?
Right.
My phone doesn't work. What do you got? I got a HAL 3000. Well, there's your problem. I mean, they could care less. I would rather talk to a computer that sounded excited to talk to me. So even knowing that was a computer.
So you'd rather talk to a computer that sounded like a human rather than a human that sounds like a computer.
You got it. You got it.
Okay.
You got it.
Well, that's good.
And I think as long as the customer service companies were upfront with it, I think it would fly. I think it would work. And actually, the technology is there now to really do this. Certainly with tier 1 customer service. Maybe as you go up, maybe it gets a little goofier, but I tell you, tier 1 customer service for a lot of tech companies is awful right now. And not so bad once they bump you up the chain, but you have to go through half an hour of complaining before they finally bump you up. I think tier 1 could be done much better right now with voice robots, with a reasonable amount of intelligence, which is doable right now, than you get from your, unfortunately, very often, tier 1 humans.
Tier 1.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You're just immortal.
Yeah. It's an interesting question, though. I mean, I think it's one that we're gonna be keeping our eye on, because I mean it's changing. I mean, we talk about these things evolving. The whole industry is evolving towards this. So,
and by the way, if you didn't know it, there are chatbots out there that are actually handling customer service calls.
Yeah, and dating too. So.
And dating as well. Yeah.
Apparently
That's a whole other story.
Yeah, that's right. All right, thanks, Dirk. All right, Beware of Lean Hypocrisy by Bob Emiliani appeared in Tuesday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. You can see it right there. Now, Bob Emiliani is really one of my favorite writers that we have at QD. He's an academic, so he offers an academic's insight wedded to a technician's pragmatism. So he looks at this academically, the topics, especially lean, but he also understands what's going on the shop floor, having been there and done that too. So he's got a nice combination of those perspectives. Well, the question he asks here is does Taylorism deserve the derision that lean practitioners have heaped on it over the years? And Taylor really is vilified today, Emiliani says, for two primary things. The first thing he's vilified for is the way that he and the engineers that work for him determined standards. And they did that by having a highly educated engineer, generally, a person who very abstractly would study a worker, often with a stopwatch, to find out what that person was doing and how they were doing it, and not really communicating with that worker in any real way, but just kind of judging them really from a distance. That's one reason why he's vilified today. The other one is, kind of ties in with that, is his general attitude of workers was rather dismissive, and I think it actually was, you're looking at it, in the light of today's perspectives. He assumed that workers really would only work as hard as necessary. He called it soldiering, where workers would, kind of work when they had to make a deadline, or when the bosses were cracking the whip, but other times they kind of would coast and not really put out. So he called that soldiering. Well, lean management, which is what lean practitioners today consider the way to run an organization, and scientific management, which really, i.e. is Taylorism, are different things, but people often confuse them. People often kind of hear about scientific management and they assume that's what lean does. And lean practitioners obviously are very, very taken aback by this, and they respond by bashing Taylor and all that he stood for, because they want to separate scientific management, Taylorism, with lean management, which is what's going on today and sprung out of the Toyota production system. Well, I think it's short-sighted, and it's short-sighted for a couple of reasons. The first that I think is that, Taylor worked more than 100 years ago. I mean, Taylor died actually more than 100 years ago. So his work happened at the turn of the century, 100, 110, 120 years ago. And you have to look at his insights from the perspective of what happened then, not what we're doing now. And it's really important to do that. And another thing is a great quote that we see pop up a lot in our industry, and Joseph Durant said this, but many other people, but initially I think originated with Isaac Newton, who said, "If I've seen further than others, it's only by standing on the shoulders of giants." What he meant by that, of course, is that the scientific method is that you build on the prior generation of knowledge, and that you always advance as you go. Well, the Toyota production system was built in part in that way on the work of people like Taylor, and the ability of somebody like Frederick Winslow Taylor to begin to dissect the component parts of a manufacturing process and understand what's going on, what the inputs are, what the outputs are, who's doing what and when, how long it takes. He was really one of the first people to actually do that. And that was really important insight in terms of forming what TPS is today and what lean is today. Now, in the past, I think one of the other things going on here is that managers, and this is going to sound really familiar to all of us, I think, managers in that day, in the day of Taylor, and shortly after he passed away in 1915, they would adopt only pieces of Taylorism. They only adopt pieces of scientific management. It had two real components that Taylor talked about. One was betterment, which is improving processes. The other was cooperation, which was getting the worker to agree to do this and to do it willingly and to be productive. And that second part of it, the cooperation, was often ignored. And many times management looked at betterment and they didn't look at cooperation. And it's similar today. I mean, the cultural values of lean are often ignored, and people want to focus on the tools. And people don't want to look at things like respect for people and developing their people in the organization, which are key pillars of the Toyota production system that kind of have gone away a little bit now. So I think that the takeaway here is that, it's easy to bash Taylor from the perspective of 100 years later. It's easy to look back and say, hey, I had it all wrong. I mean, he didn't respect his workers, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. But within the context of what he was doing then, he did. He did to the best of his ability. And what we have today, the systems we have in place today, are better because he did his work 100 years ago.
Well, I think you bring up an interesting point, is that it always comes down to, it's easier to use a set of tools or pretend to use a set of tools than it is to look at how you manage people to use those tools.
Right.
The soft sciences are always really hard. I mean, dealing with people and change management and all the whole management issues that come in when you're trying to implement tools and stuff. Well, that's just hard. So it's easier just to try to trot out a bunch of tools and throw them out there. If they don't work, you blame the tools, right? So you blame Taylorism, or you blame, ISO 9001 standards, or you blame, Six Sigma or lean tools or whatever, and go, wait a minute, they're just tools. They're people who have to use them, and people who have to manage them, and people who have to manage the managing of the tools. And if you don't do that, then they're nothing. They're a scalpel in the hands of a monkey.
That's right.
I mean, it doesn't do any good.
Well put. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly true. Well, and I blew through that article pretty quick. It's a long article with a lot of really great references. But he's an academic, so he's very well read. And so check the article out. You're going to find a lot of interesting names and references to articles that I didn't know about. So check that out and give it a read. It's really good content.
All right. Well, we're going to close the show this week with our tweet of the week, and this one comes to us from Twitter user Jake Pizer, who writes, "Feeling disillusioned about the presidential race? Fear not. IBM's Watson will make America great again."
There it is.
There we go. I'd vote for Watson.
That's right. I believe
How
me.
much worse could it be?
I was going to say cognitive
random stuff. It's
talk about tier 1 humans. I think we have some tier 0 humans running for president this year. Well, thanks, Derek, and thank you, Watson. I think you're going to have my write-in vote. That's good stuff. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you to Keith Bevan for joining us on today's show, and thank you all for being there. We're off on Monday, so no QDD on Monday for President's Day. That's right. But we'll be back on Tuesday, and we'll be back here next Friday for another great episode.
And get
of
your
Baldrige
significant other a significant gift for Thanksgiving. Right. There we go.
For Thanksgiving.
Or Valentine's.
Yeah, same thing. Get her a turkey for Thanksgiving and some chocolate for Valentine's.
I have such a hard time keeping track of the holidays. And Merry Christmas to you all.
That's right. Happy Hanukkah. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Have a good weekend.
So long.
Bye.
Four, three, two, one, fire.